Hello everyone, I'm hoping to start out this video with a 20 to 30 second clip of Lily on her adventure weekend where I take her to a new park she's never been before. And I think she just looks really cute, sniffing all around, exploring the new space, so I want to just include that in there. At the time of this recording, it is actually her birthday! And it's going to be kind of a crappy birthday for her because her stinky butt needs a bath. And unfortunately, I have to deal with something I really don't want to deal with today. So, her birthday was essentially celebrated on Friday when that video was taken. But, quick note on the last video. Y'all were far more willing to, just come down hard on the book, harder than I was. But y'all made good points. I mean, the writing isn't great. The writing does have this kind of very juvenile, and not in a it's geared towards younger readers sort of juvenile, just a juvenile way of writing. And I tried not to be too harsh on it for the first part. I'll probably get a little bit more critical of it as we continue on, but I don't like to start out with too strong opinion just because I want to see how things are going to unfold. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this week's segment of the book. Life on a teeter-totter. Dealing with my parents is like riding a teeter-totter nonstop. Dad promises me a shopping spree. Up I go. Good luck finding anything she can wear. Down I go. We'll do just fine without you. Up I go. Mom grabs her briefcase, purse, and keys. Just don't forget Elle's first appointment with the therapist. Down I go. Fast, hard. Like when the other person jumps off the teeter-totter and throws everything off balance. Huh? Wait, what? Mom's shoulders droop as one hand freezes on the doorknob. You said you'd tell her. She shoots eye daggers at Dad. He shoos her away like an annoying fly. Go on, I've got this. The whale has to go to a shrink? It's a punchline for a bad fat joke. I'm not very well acquainted with novels in verse or verse in general. I say some of Shakespeare's sonnets, but that's about the extent of my poetry knowledge. That and Ozymandias. That's about it. So I'm not used to what's considered what makes something a poem, what makes something in verse versus just prose that's given choppy ass line breaks. But this is something that we've seen before. You guys mentioned this in the last video, and there really isn't much verse to this novel in verse. At least it doesn't come across that way to me. I'm not a good judge of poetry, so I'm gonna leave more of those critiques up to you guys on that front. The therapist that they didn't tell the kid about, Mom had left it to Dad apparently. And why the hell is Mom saying good luck finding anything she can wear? It's kind of the same with she basically doesn't deserve new clothes because she gained weight. I understand that she's trying to make the mom a villain. And there are moms that are abusive like this, but there's we're not really, it doesn't really fit with the characterization that we've received of the mom up until this point. If we put aside her abusiveness towards Ellie, the mom is a bit of a control freak. We've seen that a little bit, and Ellie kind of describes her as this person that's always kind of seeking truth and exposing flaws. So to me, there's a difference between that and insult, and clearly there's no real distinction made here. I don't know, I don't feel like there's a need to make the mother cartoonishly evil like this. And apparently Dad is not following through with things either. I don't know. These final two lines, because it's written differently than the rest of the, I guess, poem. The whale has to go to a shrink. It's a punchline for a bad fat joke. None of that was said out loud. That's her thoughts. I think that the fact that she calls herself a whale is a little bit indicative of the interiority of the character, which isn't bad, but then it's a punchline for a bad fat joke. I don't know. There's something off about this whole thing, but we're gonna move on. Judas. Dad rips the weight loss articles off the fridge and tosses them into the trash. I'm sorry you found out this way. He says he never got around to talking to me about the therapist because he'd been swamped with work. But then he goes on and on about the importance of talking. Do parents ever hear themselves? You're a psychiatrist, Dad. I talk to you all the time. Dad straddles the chair next to me. It's not the same thing. Your mom and I agree. Dr. Wood could help you. Translation? Mom nagged and Dad caved. Judas! I hissed the S like a western diamondback rattlesnake. Dad's always had my back, not the knife in it. I have a question. If Dad's a psychiatrist, why is he okay with his wife talking to her daughter the way she does? It's weird because it seems like it paints Dad as, like, Ellie's ally for the most part. Like, the psychiatrist thing is clearly for her own good and stuff, and he treats her like a person, basically. But he has, like, no spine. And one, that seems kind of very, like, a stereotypical outline, but I find it hard to believe a professional would, like, someone who has studied psychiatry, has studied psychology, and while he may not specialize in child development or anything like that, I would think that he would know the damage that Ellie's mom, with her good luck finding anything she can wear, and she gained more weight this summer. I'm afraid if we keep buying her bigger clothes, she'll just let herself get bigger. Those were 2 lines from Ellie's mother, and I find it hard to believe that the father, a psychiatrist, would allow such damaging language that is basically abusive, especially since the mother is withholding a basic need, like clothing, from her 11-year-old daughter, simply because the daughter gained weight. And Dad is completely okay with that. Dad doesn't call Mom out. Dad doesn't, like, nothing like that happens. And I mean, in a healthy relationship, it would probably, that conversation would take place away from the children. But clearly this is something that's been ongoing. And why is he tearing off the weight loss articles off the fridge now? Like, I don't understand any of that, because it seems like the weight loss articles have been, as Ellie has put, like, they've been up there for a while. There were multiple ones on top of other ones. So what was the point of tearing them down now? Why, as a psychiatrist, is he letting his wife treat her daughter the way she does? And, like, it's, I don't know, there's this weird thing where he rips the weight loss articles off the fridge, but then he's also shown as kind of spineless, saying, you know, Mom nagged and Dad caved, which doesn't really make sense. I think that's just Ellie's point of view, and we'll just leave it there anyway. But then that creates Dad being kind of like this spineless character that can't stand up to his wife. There's this narrative is all over the fucking place, and it feels like it can't even get its characterization right. The lesser of 2 devils. I don't ride the bus. Dad takes me. We turn the final corner, and I can see the school. My stomach somersaults. It's the only part of me that can do gymnastics. I text Viv. I really need her, especially after that freaking family breakfast. I don't know if I can do this alone, Viv. I'm freaking out. Just chill. I'm trying. It's just, ugh. I add a string of emojis. Frowny face, worried face, sad face. I know. She adds a hug emoji. But if I can do it, so can you. After all, I've got to go to a whole new school. Remember, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Yeah, but they're both devils. Again, this kind of, like this, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, to a certain extent, feels like a more adult form of thinking than I would expect from an 11-year-old. I'm not saying that it's not possible for them to think in this way. It 100% is, but it still feels a little mature for their age group. I don't know, I think that they from the 11-year-olds I've seen, I think they would be a little bit more caught up in how unfair everything feels than accepting the situation and choosing the lesser of two evils in their eyes, you know? HE double hockey stick. Happy Monday, Dallas, the radio DJ yells over the airwaves as Dad pulls into the drop-off lane. Gonna hit 110. Perfect weather to hang out by the pool. I wish. Okay, Ellie, have a good day at... I slam the door, cutting Dad off. He pulls away. I hear someone singing Baby Beluga. I don't have to turn around to know. It's Marissa. And so it begins. Giggles, stares, rejection. The devils I do know. Courtney holds the door until I head in. It slams, nearly smashing my face. Oopsie, she yells over her shoulder. Even without the scorching Texas sun, I'm officially in HE double hockey stick. Okay, I know that some schools go back to, like, put schools back in session in August. Not where I am, but I know that that's a thing, so I can see, like, the hot, especially since it's in Texas, the hot weather. So that's fine. Slamming the door in her dad's face because she feels like he betrayed her, clearly. That's actually a decent characterization of how an 11-year-old would behave. Someone singing Baby Beluga, or, Marissa singing Baby Beluga. Possible, if she's singing, depending on how loud she's singing it, like, there's going to be school officials with drop-off around. That's just, especially since this is middle school, it's the first fucking day. There's staff everywhere. I don't know if someone's singing that at someone, most staff would put a stop to that, typically. The Courtney thing where she holds open the door and then lets it go right as the other person comes and says, oops, that's a little bit more believable for passive-aggressive bullying that I could definitely see girls doing out in the open, more so than the Baby Beluga song thing. But that's my perspective on those. Pretentious. While conjugating verbs in French class, I imagine Viv at her new school and figure I stink because I don't want to think of her making new friends. To punish myself, I conjugate the pretense of puer. From I stink, je pue, to they stink, is as fluent. And I don't speak French. That's probably terrible pronunciation. But the lunch bell rings, thanks to Chef Bridget at Kaiser Cafe. Gourmet food is on the menu every day, as in artichoke pizza on wheat flatbread or veggie burger with Moroccan cilantro spread. Chef? Oh yes, a chef. A cafeteria worker simply won't do, nor the word cafeteria. Mais non. Our private school's too classy, uses français to make everything from A to Z sound good. But let's call it what it is. School lunches for bullies to dine on their prey. Is one, clearly this girl is very well off, which kind of makes the new clothes thing even more abusive from her family. But if she's going to a private school that has a chef that serves artichoke pizza and veggie burger with Moroccan cilantro spread, like, this is an upper crust private school. This is not just your average, like, Catholic private school. This is an upper crust private school. And the acknowledgement that the cafeteria is renamed using French words and stuff like that as a way to elevate the overall space is not something that I think an 11-year-old would actually pick up on much. School lunch is for bullies to dine on their prey. Again, that's kind of sophisticated. That's sophisticated wording for an 11-year-old. Thinking more of it as dreading lunch because it's open season for bullying or something would be a little bit more accurate, but I'm not going to harp on that too much. Hungry Games. I stare down the hallway, Katnissing in the Hungry Games. wanting nothing more than to get out alive. I spot mutations, part piranha with their gnashing teeth, part wolverine with their claws, and part hyena with their howling laughter, posing as students. I'm hungry for escape. They're hungry for laughs. And there's no way out but through the arena. Get back, make room, there she blows. A guy sucks in his stomach and slams against the hallway walls, as if my blubber takes up all the room. Viv and I call him enemy number 3, ranking behind enemy number 1, Marissa, and enemy number 2, Courtney. The sea of students parts as everyone crashes left or right to hug the hallways. It happens every day since first grade. Il point. I'm sorry, there are entirely too many kids in the average middle school, especially first day, because here's the thing, middle schools are going to have kids, not all kids from one elementary school will go to the same middle school. Not necessarily. Middle schools end up getting a variety of kids from different schools that then are kind of funneled into the middle school, and the same thing goes for high school. Kids from the same middle school won't all go to the same high school. So to say that all of these students on the first day of school are doing this is just hard to believe. It's hard to believe. And the thing is that elementary school cultures can vary drastically even within the same district. So there's some kids that just would not go for this. I'm sorry, but that's the case. There are just some kids that would not go for this. So while her top 3 bullies may very well end up in the same middle school as she does, and I could see even one, maybe 2 of them still behaving as they did in middle school, it kind of feels hard to believe that the bullies would be, on the first day of school, on the very first day of school, be more focused on her than on themselves. Like, this would have made a little bit more sense with like some cattiness at lunch, like sitting at the table next to hers and speaking just loudly enough to hear, oh yeah, I lost so much weight, unlike this really fat girl from my elementary. Like, girls are far more passive aggressive at this age, and if they get upset, it's not necessarily going to be, they're not necessarily going to say get back, make room, there she blows, or sing Baby Beluga at her. That's not quite what happens in middle school. It's going to be a little bit more covert than this, and everyone like clearing space for her does not make sense on the first day of school, because most of them wouldn't even know who she is. She may be overweight, she may be obese, but there's going to be a number of students that are not worried about her. They are worried about themselves on the first day of fucking school. Like, I think this is a pretty good characterization of how, and unfortunately, I don't think it's written that way. I don't think that it's written with that message. That's not the message that it gives out at all. But I think it's a pretty good representation of how kids especially get so wrapped up in how everyone views them. They don't realize that everyone has their own internal world, and not everyone's concerned about you. Very few people are concerned about you. Very few people even notice you. But I don't feel like it's written that way. I feel like it's written in a way that she's a victim. Life-saving librarians. The library is my safe harbor since I dare not go into the cafeteria alone. A whale surrounded by starving sharks. It was hard enough when Viv and I faced them together. How'd your summer reading go, Elle? Mrs. Pochun asks. I tell the librarian about my new favorite, novels in free verse. Imagine that, eh? Her Canadian accent is strong. Poetry at the top of your list. She smiles as she scans a book, its spine snapping and plastic jacket crackling. I breathe in the smell, hungry to read the words. You'll like this one, she says. I've been looking forward to seeing you, so you could check it out. She's the first person to smile at me today. The first to make me feel wanted. Understood. I blink back tears. It's unknown how many students' lives librarians have saved by welcoming loners at lunch. I'm not sure how I feel about this particular one. One, I thought she was going to a new school. Am I wrong? Maybe she's still at an elementary school. I know some elementary schools run K-6 instead of K-5. So I couldn't get anything. It just says Kaiser Academy. So I have no idea whether this is supposed to be an elementary school or a middle school. Since it's a private school, I guess all of the kids going from one elementary school to the same middle school would make more sense. So I guess there is that part that I forgot about. Even with private schools, though, it's not typically a K-12 all-in-one academy situation, typically, especially since it's not a boarding school. So I have no idea what kind of realm we're looking at here, because even with private schools, once middle school comes around, there's a chance that families changed, like, the general area of where they live and maybe have chosen a different middle school, or maybe a different elementary school was closer to them, but now this middle school would be the only one. Like, is this a middle school? We don't really have enough information, but the fact that she already knows the librarian suggests that it's not a new school for her. It's a school she's been going to. So that makes the whole everyone looking at her make a little bit more sense. I still find it hard to believe that these kids don't have anything more concerning about themselves, especially at this age. Most of the middle schoolers that I experienced in my student teaching, there's a focus on themselves, and then there's a focus on relationship in relation to themselves. But if it's not like Marissa and Courtney would make sense for them to be like obsessed with picking on her, because that's part of how they see themselves and they feel justified with it. But the whole school kind of treating her like that doesn't make as much sense. Small friend groups is going to be where more of the drama and more of the bullying is happening, rather than like a general school population issue. Wind chimes dangling from the door, bang and clang, announcing my arrival at the dollhouse-sized office with its living room turned waiting room and sunroom turned therapy room, which is all so fitting for my life turned nightmare. Dishes rattle in a sink somewhere, and a voice calls out, "Make yourself comfortable in my office, Ellie. Join you in a minute." "That's Dr. Wood," Dad says, taking off his cowboy hat and sitting down in the waiting room. "You can take the man out of the ranch, but you can't take the ranch out of the man." "You'll like her," he winks and draws up one side of his mouth and makes it click. I call it his cowboy charmer. Trust me. Not anymore, I don't. Venom drips from my voice as I give him an exaggerated smile that quickly morphs to a frown. The smown. I guess it's smown. The smown, we call it. I'm famous for them. As are most teenagers. But I am so fucking confused. This whole thing doesn't make fucking sense. Why is he wearing a cowboy hat? Like, I understand that it's Texas, but I don't think... I could be wrong. I've never been to Texas. But I thought, like, the wearing cowboy hats thing was kind of a stereotype, and it's not, like... I mean, it's common-ish, but not ridiculously common. And I thought her dad was a psychiatrist. Did he grow up on a ranch? Like, there's information missing here. Also, the fact that her mother is a journalist and her father was a psychiatrist, at least that's what we were told before, then it doesn't make sense that the psychiatrist that they would be seeing would be this person that has a tiny office and it's like a converted house. I mean, given their money level, although everything, like, nothing is consistent about this part at all. So, I mean, they could have just thought it was a good fit for her, and that's why they chose the therapist, but there's something about the level of money that we see in Kaiser Academy that feels like it clashes with this psychiatrist's office a bit to me. Of course, if it is a children's therapist, perhaps the house setting is more inviting to children. But still, this whole thing, like, there's just a big clash here, in my mind, of this dollhouse-sized office with its living room turned waiting room and sunroom turned therapy room, in contrast to the Kaiser Academy that we saw, or Kaiser Academy. It's Kiser. So I pronounced it Kaiser. There's just like the academy was like very kind of upper crust to the point where they didn't even want to call their cafeteria a cafeteria, but then there's this tiny converted house converted into an office. So I don't know. There's just something that feels like it's clashing here. Power struggle. I just Power struggle. I decided to go toe to toe with Dr. Wouldn't You Like to Know. When she comes into the office, she finds me in her chair, throwing her off her game, taking away a smidge of her power. She purses her lips. Then she sits on the couch. Ellie, tell me why you're here. My therapist is skin and bones. Couldn't they at least have found a fat one who might understand me? I fold my arms across my chest, the universal sign for conversation closed. I may have no choice about being here, but I can choose if I want to talk. You do realize seeing a therapist is about having someone to talk to sort out what's going on in your life, and how you feel about it, to figure out what you can do to change or accept it. It's nothing to be ashamed or afraid of. Doctor, wouldn't you like to know? Raises her eyebrows, forming wavy forehead wrinkles. She's paid to put up with me, so I show a little sass. I know. My dad's a psychiatrist, remember? Eyes roll, mine, then hers. Not in the mood to talk today, huh? That's fine. She scribbles on a pad until time's up. With each word she writes, she takes back her power. I wish I could smart off to my parents like I did to Doctor, wouldn't you like to know? Tell them what I really think, especially Mom, but I guess I'm too scared of how she'll react. She makes life hard enough now, while I'm keeping my thoughts to myself. Why aren't kids allowed to tell grown-ups when they're wrong? They don't know everything. Sometimes it's as if they don't know anything. I call major bullshit on the way this therapist has reacted. So, my therapist is skin and bones. Couldn't they have found a fat one who might understand me? I don't think that an 11-year-old would think in this realm. I think they would see that maybe, if they're really hung up on the fatness, they would see her and then clam up because they figure she wouldn't necessarily understand, but I don't think that they would wish for a fat therapist. But that's just me a little bit throwing my opinion in there. But when she comes into my office, she finds me in her chair, throwing her off her game, taking away a smidge of her power. That's very much Ellie's interpretation, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that part in particular, because I think that might be how an 11-year-old might think. And again, it's kind of hard to tell whether we just have the unreliable narrator that is Ellie. I don't feel like the book is set up to make Ellie an unreliable narrator. I feel like it's meant to be taken at face value and that her interpretation is correct. And that's part of the issue that I have with this. Because it's setting this up like her interpretation of all events are accurate. So this woman who comes in, purses her lips, and then sits on the couch and kind of talking down to Ellie and rolling her eyes, of all things. It's the first meeting with a tween. I don't know of any psychiatrist or psychologist that regularly works with children that would find Ellie's behavior unusual, especially as a kid that was brought there against her will. There's something, this psychiatrist either doesn't regularly work with kids and the parents didn't do their due diligence, or they're just setting it up for the psychiatrist to be another antagonist in Ellie's narrative, which is really too bad, because then it also kind of feels like it's demonizing psychologists and psychiatrists a little bit. It does start off with saying, there's nothing to be ashamed or afraid of, but then that's not really backed up with the subsequent eye rolls. So, I don't know. Choices, finally. While you were with Dr. Wood, I texted Aunt Zoe, and she told me about a new boutique for plus-size kids and teens. Whatever. At my size, shopping for clothes isn't fun. I just want what everyone else my age wears to blend in, since I already stand out, but it's hardly ever in my size. At least shopping with Dad is way better than with Mom. She always tells me to try on clothes that won't even fit over my head, and then kvetches that I need to stick to my diet. Mom always says, "You'd be so pretty," and all the big girls in the world can finish this sentence in unison, if you lost weight. After the boutique owner, Diana, introduces herself and welcomes us, Dad says, "I'll be over there reading." He points to the lounge area. He always has a book with him. You just have 3 rules right now, Ellie. Enjoy, no limits, take your time. My eyes lock onto an orange peasant top with embroidered turquoise flowers, my 2 favorite colors. At first I think it's probably not in my size, but I discover it is. Everything is. I've never had so many cool clothes to choose from, or had a store like this to shop in. Even the mannequins here are my size. I'm Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. This whole thing right here is nothing but like a fat acceptance scenario. You'd be so pretty if you lost weight. That is very standard FA rhetoric right there of what everyone apparently thinks and that sort of thing. And this is kind of treated as a universal understanding, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I'm not going to get into that. And then the absolute joy of a plus size store. It's not that here's the thing, it's not presenting these things in and of themselves that's the issue. It's the rather inflated emotion of everything that's given in these circumstances that makes it feel more rhetoric rather than giving a perspective, Feeling pretty. I love your store. I don't know where to start, I tell Diana. Thanks. I've dreamed of having a shop like this since I was your age. Diana leans on a display near me as I search the racks of shirts and jeans. You're lucky, she says. Finding plus-size clothing is easier now. When I was young, clothes for Zaftigs were just ugh. She places one hand on her neck as if the memories strangle her. Zaftig means pleasantly plump. It comes from the Yiddish word zaftig. Bobashi spoke Yiddish all the time, so I know that word. But no positive word for fat would ever be in my mom's vocabulary. So my mom learned to sew, Diana continues. She created patterns just for my body. I feel a twinge of envy, thinking about having a mom like hers, someone who just accepts us and adapts the world to fit us, instead of trying to make us fit in the world. Every time I get a chance, I glance at Diana and notice things about her. How she wears an off-the-shoulder shirt and short skirt to show off her curves, instead of hiding as much of her body as possible, like I do. How she wears bright yellow instead of a dark color. How she walks with confidence, head held high, happy to be seen, instead of looking down at the floor like I do. I want to be more like Diana, free to be me, a Zaftig. I wish I were an octopus. As I shop, 2 arms can't hold all the clothes I want. For the first time, I find things that make me feel pretty. So, again, a lot of fat acceptance rhetoric, memory strangling her, apparently Yiddish word, a mother that doesn't accept us but expects us to fit the world instead of making the world to fit us, which I don't expect the 11-year-old character to understand this and how that's not how the world works and how your parent can't make everything fit you. But it doesn't even feel like that's the point, that it's an over-idealized child notion. It feels like it's meant to be taken at face value once again. And to show off her curves is not something that an 11-year-old would think. Thinking she may be big, but she looks pretty, or I want to look sexy like her, or whatever it is that Ellie is seeing would make more sense. But to chop it up into these small variations, bright yellow instead of a dark color, instead of hiding her body as much as possible, walking with confidence, head held high instead of looking down, I don't think that an 11-year-old would be able to break it up like that. Maybe it's done for effect, but it still doesn't work for me. I'm a starfish. When I get back home from Diana's boutique, I try something new. The pool's always been my escape, the place I feel weightless, in today's fat-obsessed world. I swim each morning and try to hold on to that feeling throughout the day. But by the time school's over, I feel every pound plus the added weight of shame from all the comments and pranks. The pool helps wash it all away. Now I want the pool to be something more. Not only a place to escape, but also a place to express myself. As I float, I spread out my arms and my legs. I'm a starfish, taking up all the room I want. Absolutely nothing but fat acceptance rhetoric. I feel every pound plus the added weight of shame from all the comments and pranks. Not a way an 11-year-old would think this is. And I feel the place I feel weightless in today's fat-obsessed world. The world isn't nearly as fat-obsessed as FAs try to, make us think it is. There's more focus on being fat or not because of the obesity epidemic, but it's not fat-obsessed the way they think it is. And this taking up all the room I want is not a way an 11-year-old would think. Laying in the pool, spreading out my arms and legs, I'm a starfish, and in an ocean much bigger than myself, I fit in or something, or I'm at peace or something would make far more sense for an 11-year-old than saying I take up all the room I want. That is such a take up space is a fat acceptance talking point and a fat acceptance call to action, not something that the average child would think of, because it's steeped in rhetoric. This makes no fucking sense. And this is all from being in a plus size store for kids. It doesn't make sense. This is too much of a big fucking leap in thoughts for a child this age. This doesn't make any goddamn bit of sense. This is nothing but pushing rhetoric. That's all it is. I don't expect even my middle grade students to understand how these two are fucking connected. Because part of the reason why I understand it is because I've been so fucking steeped in FA rhetoric with this fucking channel that I understand what this fucking means. My students aren't gonna understand what the hell this means. Friends, not enemies. Boxes surround Viv as we video chat. Are you packing up and heading back here, where you belong? Still unpacking here in Podunk. Viv says her new school has more fat people than Kaiser Academy. So she's feeling at home. I'm happy for her. When she asks how my day went, I tell her about all the bullying and the therapist. No freaking way. No freaking way what? Her mom, Sue, asks, bending over the screen to say hi, so she's upside down to me. After Viv fills her in, Sue says, "Don't let your mom's issues with weight become your issues with weight, kiddo. Stop hijacking our conversation." Viv playfully pushes her mom away. I like how they act like best friends, not mother and daughter, not arch enemies like my mom and me. After Sue leaves the room, Viv asks, "But really, Why is everyone so mean to us? Don't you know they're just joking? People laugh at jokes, Viv says. They shouldn't make us want to go home and cry our eyes out. What can we do about it, though? How about we sit on them? Viv laughs at my tired joke until she cries. I join her, and our tears have nothing to do with laughter. I don't think that Sue would necessarily say, don't let your mom's issues with weight become your issues with weight, kiddo. To an 11-year-old, after hearing about her going to a therapist when she doesn't know why the kid is going to a therapist, she knows Ellie for a while, and I don't doubt that she would give her advice, but she doesn't know if the mom's listening in. She doesn't know. For an adult talking to someone else's kid, you're a little bit more aware of how things could be interpreted, and you don't want to piss off that kid's parents. Because you want that kid to have, if you think that it's like a potentially abusive situation, or at least an unhealthy situation, you want to leave some space where that kid can contact your kid should shit really hit the fan or something. And I don't know if she would say this out loud on a video chat when we don't know where Ellie is at the moment. Is Ellie in her room? Is Ellie in the family room where people can pass by? I don't know. There's something about it that I don't like. The whole thing about jokes making people laugh and not making people want to cry also feels a little bit too structured in the internet speak, like we've seen online, and it doesn't feel like something that they would think of themselves. And someone had mentioned their own bullying thing or their own bullying experience in the last video. And a good point was made is that when a child, especially this age, is being bullied, they think about how they can change themselves to get out of it, not necessarily blaming the bullies themselves, because that's not how our brains work, especially as children. We assume responsibility for far more than we should, especially as children, because we have to believe that it's something in our power to change. Ellie would either try to make herself blend in more, she would try to lose weight, even in an unhealthy way, but I don't think that she would blame her bullies, and I don't think Viv would blame the bullies either. More, they would talk to each other about how to fix their situation through their own actions, rather than simply blaming the bullies, which where the responsibility lies. I'm just saying it's not really conducive to how 11-year-olds would act. Unappetizing. For dinner, I'm the appetizer. How'd it go with Dr. Wood? Mom starts in even before the first piece of steak reaches my mouth. Epic fail. She's as fat as ever. Liam says. That's enough, Dad scolds my brother, after waiting a beat, like he often does, so Mom can say something in my defense. But she never, ever does. Anais catches my attention, glances at Liam, and rolls her eyes, as if saying, what an idiot. That's nice for once. Usually she laughs along with him, but lately she seems annoyed with him too. Mom chews on her lips more than her food, as if she's biting back words. Hope he'll give Dr. Wood a chance. Kale dangles from Mom's fork. I nod. She bites her lips again. 'Cause if therapy doesn't work, we'll have to think of something else. She bites her lips again. 'Cause if therapy doesn't work, we'll have to think of something else, okay? She started to say something else, all right. A word that begins with S. Surgery. Bariatric surgery. I chew, and chew, but it seems like the piece of steak grows larger, so I secretly spit it into a napkin. I've lost my appetite. So, an 11-year-old knows about bariatric surgery. Bariatric surgery, I don't think is something typically performed on a person so young. I think that this was just inserted in there to create another boogeyman in her narrative. And, well, the sisters' behavior being inconsistent with the rest of the book isn't such a big deal because they are siblings and that can happen. I find Dad sticking up for her when he didn't really seem to care at breakfast what the other siblings said, and they regularly call her Splash and other synonyms for whale. So why is it now that that's an issue? Like, that's a bit of a contradiction in parenting, which I guess is also possible, but given that Dad has been kind of characterized as spineless a bit so far, I still find that hard to believe. And, of course, Mom is just... I don't see how Mom can be this obsessive and then still allow Ellie all the freedom to choose her own food and what she's eating. Missing Dad. You can miss someone even when they're with you. It's storming, and I'm bored. I bounce through the house and see Dad camped out on the couch in his office. I challenge him to a backgammon battle if he hadn't Judased me by siding with Mom about me needing a therapist. I inch backward to return to my room and avoid him, but the wooden floor squeaks, rats me out. Can't avoid me forever. At the sound of Dad's voice, Gigi hops onto his lap and rolls over for a tummy rub. She forgives him. My dog's a better person than me. Not how an 11-year-old would think again, and also why is Dad camped out on the office in the couch in his office? Fight with Mom? Like, that's not really being acknowledged here. That Dad probably, because a kid would be at least somewhat aware of that. Dad and Mom got into a fight, likely because of her. That would seem like something she would internalize and would feel a sense of shame to me. Because kids blame themselves for everything. So why is that not happening? Like, I understand that she's upset for her dad for siding with her mom, but the fact that he's camped out on the couch in his office would also suggest that he's on the outs with Mom. So what's going on? There's a lot of inconsistency in how things are written. Here, it just, I don't understand. I gotta be honest, someone had said that the only reason why this book was published was because it covers a hot topic, and I can't help but agree with that, because, like, the writing itself isn't great by any means. There's a lot of issues with the writing itself, but even when it comes to macro issues like consistency of characters, it doesn't do that at all. There's just been nothing but characters acting in a way that best validates Ellie without, and a bunch of fat acceptance rhetoric thrown in. There really hasn't been much of anything except fueling Ellie's victimhood and fat acceptance rhetoric. That's all that's really happened. Someone to talk to. Dad talks first. Still mad at me, I see. Just tell me why you let Mom talk you into making me go to a therapist. Dr. Wood was my idea. What? Are you kidding me, Dad? I thought you were on my side. I thought I could trust you. I thought you loved me. Sit down and hear me out. But, he points to the cushion. I'm not asking. I flop down. Gigi senses something's wrong and snorts at Dad before she comes over and snuggles next to me. At least my dog is still loyal. For a while, your mom pushed for you to have surgery. But I think you're way too young. I've pushed for therapy because I see the hurt in your eyes from what people say and do to you. And yet you don't fucking stop your wife. Tears well up in my eyes. Dad noticed. He cares. Why hasn't Mom? It breaks my heart, Ellie. I just think it'd be good for you to have someone to talk to about it all. But if therapy doesn't help me lose weight, then no surgery, I promise. If I'm lying, may Oklahoma beat Texas in every Red River showdown until I die. Ever since the first time Mom said the word surgery, it's as if fear-filled balloons have been lodged in my lungs, keeping me from taking a full breath. With Dad's promise, they pop. I can breathe again. Here's the thing, though. He doesn't keep his wife in line at all. Even as a psychiatrist, he hasn't been talking to his wife, maybe behind the scenes, since this is very much from Ellie's perspective. But there's so much issue with the way the father is being characterized that, like, he's both her advocate, but then also her mother's enabler. I don't really understand how the father is supposed to be characterized at all here. And yeah, she could probably use someone to talk to, but so far, if Dr. Good was his idea, why did he pick her since she doesn't seem to be well equipped dealing with kids? There's just so many fucking issues with this, and it's been nothing but FA rhetoric. Nothing but FA rhetoric, and the Starfish taking up all the space doesn't make a goddamn bit of sense. I understand her being excited about a place where all of the clothes fit her. That makes sense. I get that. I can get on with that just fine. But then the immediate switch to that being her taking up space doesn't make a goddamn bit of sense except in FA rhetoric. Like, there's just so many issues with this, from the writing to the characterization of the different characters to the consistency of action to the different characters to the ham-fisted FA rhetoric that's put in here. It's just so fucking bad. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about this. Alright, so quick announcement before we completely close this out, and then I'm going to talk, announcement, then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been reading, and then we'll close this out. So, for the 3,000 subscribers special, I've decided to postpone it until December 1st when it will go up, but I am still recording it probably this weekend. And there's a reason for that, and I promise it's all coming in December. I'm working really hard to try to deliver on the idea that I had, although it's changed quite a bit from its initial inception. But I hope you guys enjoy it. Look forward to December. And now we'll go over what I've been reading. So there have been a number of promotions on Tappy Tunes this week, so I've had a chance to read a lot of different things. The Secret Life of Emperor Isana is one that I have not gotten very far in, so I don't really have an opinion on it yet. I haven't actually read Dungeon Majesty yet, so I don't have a huge opinion on that at all. Tied to You, I am nearing like the last 10 chapters of it. It's a really fun soulmate BLAU sort of situation. And it's just like there's a love triangle between these two brothers and a childhood friend. And there's been like, it's a little toxic, but it's still kind of fun to read. The Black Mirror is interesting in that it's like there's some sort of nefarious, almost supernatural thing going on with like the main character and his childhood friend, who he doesn't remember at all because he has amnesia from the age of 10 and younger, I think. So I don't know what's going on there. We're still learning more about that. I'm the soldier's ex-girlfriend. She's brought into the world of a book again, obviously. And the person that her character is supposed to end up with is kind of a player and an asshole, so she dumps his ass. And then ends up with this guy because she was trying to just make a way for herself, like a life for herself, and so she wanted to become like a government official sort of person. And she ends up getting along well with him, although it's pretty much made clear at this point that he's the devil, which is weird. I was not expecting that, and I don't know if I wouldn't say that I like it, but I don't know if I want to read it or not. I keep reading it because I'm curious to see where it goes, but I don't know if I really like this couple or not. I can't decide. The Sweetest Man involves a vampire accidentally turning a lifelong, well, at least this life, because he always goes back, like he reaches a certain age point and then he goes all the way back to being younger. He's like 300 years old at least 300 years old. And he ran away from home because he didn't like the way the vampires handled things, because he is a vampire, and he accidentally turns this guy into what's essentially what they call kin, which is like a pseudo-vampire that he can just kind of feed on. It's weird, but it's another BL romance, and it has moments of being really cute and interesting, and then there's a lot of weird fuckery in it. A Villainess for a Tyrant is starting to develop more of a plot line. Like, we don't know what's going on with her. Her memories don't seem to line up with what reality is presenting. Even her memories from being in her as a character, like, they aren't lining up with how reality is. So that's really interesting, and I can't wait to see more of that. The Lady Beast, we're seeing more interactions between husband and wife that I really like. The Secret Queen, I noped out of pretty early because this woman was kidnapped off the streets and then held against her will to be part of a harem for someone, and it's kind of creepy and I don't like it. Ashtart, I'm actually all caught up on this one. I do recommend this one. This one's really interesting. I don't want to give away any spoilers yet though, because there's interesting stuff to be had here. It's really worth a read, but I don't want to give anything away. The East Wind of the Atlas. I remember having issues with this one too. I don't remember what they were. I just didn't like it. The Max Level Returner bored the shit out of me. I'm still beloved by my in-laws, and the Empress wants to avoid the Emperor, and of course, divorcing my tyrant husband. I started reading Aeneid, and I got bored pretty quickly, so I left it. And the reason why Rayliana ended up at the Duke's mansion, I have finished, and again, it's one of my favorites of all time. I highly recommend it. It is fabulous. It is a fabulous story. But that's where we are for today. So I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.